Hello, good morning everyone. We still have 2 more minutes before we start our webinar, and that will give you some, hopefully enough time to go grab your coffee, drinks, bio breaks and everything. We will start in approximately 2 minutes. Thank you. Right, we will be starting our webinar very, very soon. Okay. Good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you, Regional Steering Committee members, representatives of Arafura and Timor Seas countries, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, Papua New Guinea, and Australia, distinguished participants. Welcome to Arafura and Timor Seas Ecosystem Action Phase 2, or ATSEA-2, Stakeholder Partnership Forum, a consultative webinar series, Building a Better ATS for Tomorrow. Before we start, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Galuh. I am a second-year master's student in the Coastal Science and Policy Program, University of California, Santa Cruz. Before pursuing my study, I worked in conservation NGO sector and worked closely with local communities and government at various levels to build a strong, long-lasting partnership to sustain the impact of the project. This is the first of 4 webinars, and if you haven't registered for other 3, I encourage you to sign up and join this All Women in Science Moderation webinar and discuss the various important issues in this very rich and important seascapes. And today's theme is towards a Stakeholder Partnership Forum, what it is and also what is ATSEA. We will learn from the ATSEA team, our presenters and panelists today. So just to remind you briefly about the meeting guidelines, the host will mute all participants. And in the event that you would like to ask questions, you may click raise hand and moderator will call your attention to speak and unmute yourself. You may also type your questions in the chat box. And this is very important also, please be more compassionate in these unprecedented times. So if moderator or panelists or presenters have something in their background, please ignore it and be more compassionate. So also we will have daily quizzes. This is very interesting. Daily quizzes and quote competition. On the quote competition, one participant allows to write down maximum 2 quotes only, posted in your Facebook and tag the ATSEA page, the Arafura and Timor Seas Ecosystem Action or ATSEA-2. And there will be 2 winner categories, the best quote. So pay very close attention to the speakers, and the most liked post. The winners will be announced at the 4th day of this webinar on November 5th, 2020. And also there will be questionnaires related to communications and a stakeholder partnership forum that will be shared in the chat box. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Handoko Adi Susanto that will give a brief review about what ATSEA-2 is and give us a more comprehensive, materials for us to continue the webinar today and also the next 3 days. Mas Handoko, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Galuh, moderator of today's sessions. Good morning, everyone. Representative from 4 ATS countries, RAC members, and all participants. Host, could you show my slides, please? Thank you for coming to our Stakeholder Partnership Forum consultative webinar series today. I'm Handoko, will briefly introducing Arafura and Timor Seas Ecosystem Actions Program, or well known as ATSEA. I will start by playing a 3-minute video animation to give you a big picture of our program. Next, please, and play the video.
The Arafura and Timor Seas region, or ATS, is unique in terms of its ecology, geography, and socio-political structure. It is rich in resources and home to a vast array of natural wonders. Shared by Australia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and Timor-Leste, this fertile corridor of tropical water connects the Pacific and Indian Oceans. This area provides the peoples of many nations with essential resources, while also stocking the world's oceans with biodiversity. Unfortunately, overfishing, marine and land-based pollution, loss of habitat, and the impacts of climate change create a major threat to most marine life in the region. This underlines the urgent need for a collective regional action and transboundary management of economically important fish species, critical habitats, and marine megafauna. Therefore, in 2006, the ATS Expert Forum developed and submitted a bid to the Global Environment Facility, which came to be known as the Arafura and Timor Seas Ecosystem Action Program, or ATSEA. The initial phase was officially launched in 2010 and created a regional collaboration tasked with finding sustainable solutions for problems affecting coastal and marine resources in the region. In 2019, the second phase of ATSEA, known as ATSEA-2, has been adapted to take the collaboration and coordination in the ATS region a step further through the endorsement and implementation of a 10-year vision for the ATS known as the Strategic Action Program. It is made up of 3 main components. The first component focuses on strengthening the regional and national collaboration mechanism and establishing a stakeholder partnership forum to facilitate implementation of priority actions and better participatory processes. The second component focuses on developing an ecosystem approach to the fisheries management plan, strengthening the implementation of regional plan of action to combat IUU fishing, assessing marine and land-based pollution, establishing and supporting the management of marine protected areas, and developing a regional plan to enhance marine turtle protection. And the third component focuses on improving the monitoring of the ATS region and sharing knowledge gained from the project. Through the 3 components, ATSEA-2 aims to achieve its main objectives in the ATS to foster sustainable development in the region by improving the quality of life of its inhabitants through restoration, conservation, and sustainable management of marine coastal ecosystems for a better life.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Hopefully, the video animation is giving you enough understanding about the ATSEA-2 program in light of the COVID pandemic. That's why we are developed these video animations instead of the real picture from the field. So this map shows the Arafura and Timor Seas bordered by Australia, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and Papua New Guinea. The project is covering the following specific sites where key project activities will be undertaken to address the 5 major transboundary issues identified in the TDA. Can you move to the map, please? The sites in Indonesia are Rotendao of the East Nusa Tenggara province, and then in Merauke of the Papua province, and Aru Tenggara of the Maluku province. And in Timor-Leste, we are working in Vikeke, Manatuto, Ovalima, and also supporting the Nino Konis Santana National Park management. And in PNG, we focus in South Fly district of the Western province. Next slide, please. The 5 major transboundary issues are unsustainable fisheries, modification, degradation, and loss of habitat, marine and land-based pollutions, climate change impact, and loss of key species. This project has a 5 years time frame and will be implemented under 3 major components, as you saw in the video. And then we have 9 target outcomes, and then also 23 target output. In the overall, the intervention under these components are aimed to contribute to enhancing the development of the ATS region towards sustainability. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So this slide provides a brief about the Stakeholder Partnership Forum, or SPF, that we are going to establish under this ATSEA program. Later, we are going to listen to more detail about the SPF from our speaker, Pak Tonny Wagey, and then also Ibu Lida. Building on the knowledge and experience accumulated through the support of the academic and scientific network of the former ATS Expert Forum, or ATSEF, under phase 1, the ATSEA-2 project is paving the way for more inclusivity by strengthening participatory mechanism in ATS governance through the engagement of a broader array of stakeholders in these regions. The SPF will come from key stakeholder groups of government, civil society, community group, NGOs, women's organizations, private sectors, local government administration, academic, and scientific institutions. SPF will serve as an important support mechanism for the ATSEA Regional Secretariat and also the Regional Coordination Committee, or RCC, by providing technical and policy advice and ensuring stakeholder participation and coordinated governance of ATS ecosystem. Next slide, please. So we have several activities related to the Stakeholder Partnership Forum and then also strengthening the regional governance mechanisms throughout the 5-year project, including the establishment of SPF. Hopefully, we can establish this SPF next year, 2021. We are hosting a workshop to discuss further SPF guideline, DOR, and mechanisms, and so on. Also, we will have regular meeting of SPF, and then regular and national consultations to discuss the preferred organizational model of the RCM, develop an investment and financial strategy and plan for funding the operations after the projects end, and then also establishment of National Interministries Committee, organize a gender inclusion workshop, and also updated at ATS, TDA, SAP, and also NAPS at country level. Next slide, please. We are hoping to establish an SPF earlier next year, probably in the Q1. Hence, the objective of this SPF consultative webinar series are threefold. The first, to present the ATSEA-2 programs and overview of key challenges. And then the second, to present the initial findings, challenges, and next step of the studies to our RSC member, potential SFTF member, and general public. And lastly, to present SPF as part of the ATS regional governance mechanism, its objective and role to potential SPF. Next slide, please. This slide to show you the overall 4 days of our webinar series. The first day is today. We are discussing a topic related to introduction to SPF and the ongoing assessment of regional governance mechanisms. The second day will be about climate change and marine and land-based pollutions. On the third day, about MPA design and marine turtle studies. The webinar on the third day will be in the afternoon to accommodate our MPA network senior scientist, Ibu Alison Green, who currently live in Saudi Arabia. Lastly, on the last day, we are discussing about sustainable fishery management. All 4 days season will be moderated by young women. Today by Galuh, as master student of the University California, Santa Cruz. Then the second day will be by Swetinia Lestari, founder of Diverse Clean Action. And then the third day by Kirana Agustina from WRI Indonesia. And then the last day, the fourth day, by Dina Yunita from CTI-CFF Women's Leaders Forum. We are grateful to have many prominent scientists and experts who will speak in our webinar series. I see here that our speakers and panelists are coming from Australia, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, UK, Philippines, Korea, and Saudi Arabia. Next slide, please. We thank all moderator, speaker, and panelists, and all participants. Hopefully this event will be useful for all of us to improve marine and fishery resources management, especially in the ATS region. Before I'm ending my speech, I would like to inform all participants that we carry out a survey related how to do the best way in communications and toward the establishment of the SPF. We would like to encourage you to spend 5 to 10 minutes to join the survey. You can see the survey in the chat rooms. It will become your significant contributions to building a better ATS for tomorrow. Thank you, and back to you, Galuh. Unmute, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Mas Handoko, for the explanation. I am very honored to be participating in this important event as a moderator. So I thank you so much for that. And ladies and gentlemen, as we heard from Dr. Handoko, this is, you can see in the title, it is a consultative webinar series. So it is expected, I think the ATSEA team want to consult as many stakeholders as possible, that including you, in this very important phase of the project. And you could play an important role and expected to do so. So hopefully you all can participate and provide many inputs through the ATSEA team, through the survey, or through the webinar series, in the discussion, and maybe could also join the Stakeholder Partnership Forum later. Okay, so without further ado, we will hear the presentation from our presenters and also comments from the panelists. But before that, please allow me to introduce our presenters for today and also the panelists. The first one is Bapak Tonny Wagey. Pak Tonny, good morning. He will be presenting on building on ATSEA initiatives and lessons learned. Dr. Tonny Wagey has more than 25 years of experience in the field of fisheries, oceanography, and environmental management. He holds a PhD degree in fisheries and oceanography from the University of British Columbia in Canada. He was the regional project manager of the Arafura and Timor Seas Ecosystem Action Phase 1 or ATSEA-2, a UNDP project based in Jakarta. He is also involved in the International Working Group of Blue Carbon, focusing on mitigation and adaptation measures of marine and coastal carbon. Presently, he serves as the Executive Director for Indonesia Climate Change Trust Fund, or ICCTF, one of the government's key instruments in taking actions to reduce greenhouse gases emission. Dr. Tonny Wagey is currently bringing ICCTF's focus on the importance of the blue sector, as well as streamlining the blue approach into major climate change issue. Good morning, Pak Tonny. Before going to Pak Tonny, I will give a brief explanation of all the presenters and panelists. Our second presenter is Ibu Lida Pet-Soede, who will be presenting about the ATS regional governance options. Ibu Lida is the leader marine unit at PT Hatfield, Indonesia, an environmental consultant. She is a senior strategic conservation and fisheries management professional with practical policy, technical, and management skills. She is a leader in developing new programs, initiating multi-partner platforms, and a strong and effective motivator for the related required organizational change. She holds graduate degrees in tropical fisheries, biology and management, from bachelor to PhD from Wageningen Agricultural University in the Netherlands, and is an avid diver. Cool. She conducted her PhD research, supervised more than 100 students over the years, many of which have jobs in conservation and fisheries management, and she co-authored more than 40 papers and publications. She was born in the Netherlands, enjoys living in Indonesia with her family, and takes trips around Indonesia, showing her two daughters the beauty of the Coral Triangle. I would like to do so as well, hopefully, in the future. Next, we have two panelists for today. The first one is Ms. Aimee Gonzales. Good morning, Ms. Aimee. Ms. Aimee Gonzales is currently the Executive Director of the Partnership in Environmental Management for the Seas of East Asia, or PEMSEA, a regional coordinating mechanism to foster healthy and resilient coasts and oceans through applying science-based integrated management solutions and strategic partnership in the East Asian seas. She has more than 20 years of analytical and advocacy experience on sustainable marine and fisheries governance and policy reforms with WWF International. Before working with WWF, Aimee served as head executive assistant to two cabinet secretaries of the Philippine Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Aimee holds a Master on Environmental Assessment and Education from the London School of Economics and a master's degree in Public Policy from the National University of Singapore. Good morning, Ibu Aimee. And last but not least, we have Dr. Arwandrija Rukma with us. Pa Arwan is the Senior Director of Programmatic Policy and Government Engagement at RARE Indonesia. And he has been working for the government, non-government, and intergovernment organizations in more than 25 years of his professional career. At RARE, he works on many initiatives on the strengthening policies and governance for coastal fisheries management. He grew his early career with the State Secretariat of the Indonesian government as the head of Multilateral Technical Cooperation Division before moved to the NGO world when he joined the ICCTF. And he has Doctor of Economics degree from the Department of Economic and Developmental Policy from the Graduate School of International Cooperation Studies, Kobe University in Japan. He holds a Master of Public and Policy Administration and Management and Diploma in Development Policy from the Institute of Development Policy and Management, the University Center Antwerp in Belgium. Before that, studied at the International Relations Department, Faculty of Social and Political Science at Gajah Mada University in Yogyakarta. One important fact about Pa Arwan is that yesterday was his birthday. So happy birthday, Pa Arwan. And without further ado, I would like to call on Dr. Tonny Wagey to give the first presentation. Sir, you have around 20 minutes to give the presentation, and then we will move on to the second presentation. I will be reminding the speaker, apologies in advance, I will remind you that maybe around 2 minutes before the time is up. So just to give you a heads up that I might be interrupting 2 minutes before the time's up. Okay, Pak Tonny, silakan Pak, the floor is yours.
Terima kasih Mbak Galuh or Ibu Galuh. Terima kasih juga ke panitia ya yang sudah mengundang saya. So let me congratulate Handoko, Aimee, and all the ATSEA-2 team for moving all the way to this stage at ATSEA-2. It is really remarkable to see what you have been doing here. All right. Ibu Moderator, I might be running a little bit over, but because I have a 5-minute video to show you first, and then not so many slides. And I guess I have to also say hi to all the people here in this virtual room, whom I've been working, known for many years since we started the ATSEA project. ATSEF back then, and hi to the people, to all the invitees here. Very happy to see you all. All right, so without taking much of the time, let me ask the organizer, because I have no control of my presentation and the video, so let's roll it out with the video first, please. I hope you can see all of this here.
Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. For Indonesia, the vision of ATSEA is to achieve sustainable development in Arafura and Timor Seas. Its mission is to address strategic issues in poverty alleviation for coastal communities, sustainable use of marine resources, and enhance our understanding on the process of biology, chemistry, and physics in these dynamic ocean waters. Indonesian governments support this regional effort, which intends to integrate the scientific and the environment values into the decision-making and to promote sustainable use of marine and coastal natural resources of this region. And for Indonesia, the Arafura Sea is known to be one of the most productive seas. It supports almost 50% of all the shrimp caught from nature and 20% of all demersal fish in Indonesia. This is very significant and important contribution to our national economy. His Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, ATSEA is now entering to the final stage of project implementation. It is clear that we should allocate greater effort together to ensure that the SAP can and must be implemented. Will we be able to deliver the strategic action program that has been underlined, which is to ensure that our marine and fisheries resources in Arafura and Timor Seas are sustained for the future generation. And for that reason, now I am pleased to sign just now the ATSEA declaration with my colleague from Timor-Leste and Australia.
Timor-Leste has its commitment to support the forum through the best efforts that we all. Through this opportunity, I would like to thank our partner, GAF, and UNDP for supporting us, even the project, and I do hope that the second phase of ATSEA will be strongly implemented. Therefore, in order to strengthen our collaboration, I would like to invite my colleague ministers to sign the declaration that we have today in here, Manado. Thank you.
There are many things that connect Australia, Indonesia and Timor-Leste, and one such thing, of course, is the ocean. The ecosystems and living marine resources of the Arafura and Timor Seas connect us across our national boundaries. Connections such as these give rise to a shared interest in working together to ensure the conservation and sustainable management of the Arafura and Timor Seas. The ATSEA project has built this shared interest into a comprehensive framework. The transboundary diagnostic analysis provides a robust understanding of priority shared environmental concerns. The Strategic Action Programme provides a pathway for working together to address these concerns. The institutional framework establishes governance arrangements for working together, and the ministerial declaration signals the commitment of our governments to act. But perhaps the biggest achievement of the ATSEA project is actually its least tangible output, the relationships it has served to foster. A broad range of government and non-government organisations have been involved in the ATSEA project. Australia welcomes the ministerial declaration as a potent symbol of how far this relation has come since that time, as well as a framework for the next steps in our collaboration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your patience to hear that 5-minute video, because I myself feel it is very powerful to hear the government of this ATS, the Arafura Timor Sea country, speaks of themselves. And I hope, you know, that small clip brings good memory of Manado for those who were there 6 years ago. And I think that is still relevant and resonance to what we are going and planning to do now. So let me go back now to my presentation, or I'll start my presentation. And if you can show that. Okay, so next slide, please. Right, so this is the declaration that the ministers, what they signed. And it is one of the examples of the regional cooperation in Asia, Southeast Asia in particular. There is not many cooperation, you know, could get to that level where you have the ministers sign. Next, please, yeah. So again, just a snapshot of that. What I'm trying to say here is that I think we got at least the highest support from the countries, and those are from the ministers, for this Arafura and Timor Sea cooperations. And next, what I'm not trying to do here is to talk about this sort of like a 4 or 5 components, which is the ecosystem objectives, because that, as Handoko already mentioned, I believe, that will be discussed in the next series. But these are the component objectives that really binds the countries, but also when we look at this Arafura and Timor Sea, these are what we thought the important issues that will be discussed, we need to be dealt with in the years to come. And I'm happy to see that ATSEA phase 2 now is focusing on this, because this is by itself the ministerial declaration. And to give you some perspective, next please. The next slide, please. The area that we are talking here, this is not a small area. This is a huge area. And we are talking at least 4 countries here: Indonesia, Timor-Leste, Australia, and Papua New Guinea. So what I'm thinking that, this ATSEA-2, not only is it a significant and important project, but also strategic for the issues that relate to this country of the Arafura and Timor Seas. And those ecosystem objectives that I put up on the previous slide, I think came as a result from an intensive discussion that we had with all the scientists and stakeholders from these countries that we showed on this map. And now, with the increasing and alarming issue of not just climate change or transgeographical boundaries issues, securities, and stuff, so that will make this issue becoming more interesting. But I'm not going to talk about those technical issues. What I'm being asked by the committee is that to talk about the governance issue, and also the strategic and also the stakeholder partnership forum of the SPF. Next, please. So allow me to move back a little bit and give you some perspective about why we have this Arafura and Timor Sea initiative. It started with just a forum, ATSEA, so we still have that coordination. And then we decided to, try to pitch an initiative, send a proposal to GEF to support the project known as the ATSEA project. And I have to thank all the people, the organizations, namely UNDP and of course GEF, for providing the funds and the ideas. It started back in 2002 when we had this PrepCon. It was all in Bali for the World Summit on Sustainable Development. That's when we started to talk about this Arafura Timor Sea initiative. And if I may ask your recollection when we talk about Indonesia, Australia, and Timor-Leste back then in 2002, I think you may remember the situation was not that very rosy and smooth, because politically and I would say militarily, some issues are still very, very hot and tense. But I have to give credit to some people that they were thinking, hey, look, we have this area and this area, regardless of what political or issues that may have, you still have, and you have to deal with that. And it's very important. So that's why, thanks to UNDP and others, we think that because it's very important, you need to start, and the issue of sustainable development and poverty came as the important topics. Other than that, we were also talking about the nations or the countries' obligations. Indonesia is the signatories of the UNCLOS, so is Australia. So we think that, well, as a semi-enclosed sea like the Arafura and Timor Sea, we have this obligation in the paragraph 122, 123. If you look at that, it sort of like encourage the countries to work together. And that's when we started with the ATSEA, and then came the project ATSEA. So it's quite heavy at that time. And then, of course, it took a lot of years and effort and, sort of like a time, funding to get to this stage. Next, please. Move forward. So now I'm going to talk about the regional cooperation as was reflected in the strategic action plan signed by the ministers back in 2014. So it says, and I quote from that SAP, that a regional mechanism for cooperation will be initiated to ensure coordination and capacity building to promote sustainable and integrated management of the Arafura Timor Sea regions. Those were the words of the ministers. And as a result of that, we plan to have this regional governance to strengthen this cooperation. And the second one is to involve with the stakeholders for participating in this effort, in this initiative for the Arafura Timor Sea. So we need to have the regional governance and then get the participations. And I'm happy to say that, during that period of the development, we had lots of involvement from this participant, and I'll get to that in the next slides. Next, please. So, I think, yeah, next, please. Sorry, I think I was late in giving the instruction to move next. So can you just go back to the previous slide? Yeah, so the action that I was talking was these two actions at the bottom, the strengthening of the regional governance, and the second one is strengthening of the stakeholder participation. Those are very critical, and what I'm going to elaborate later. Next. So next. So we were instructed, or we were asked, to establish 3 institutions. Number 1 is the Coordination Committee, and number 2 is the Stakeholder Partnership Forum, and third one is the coordinator itself, or the Secretariat. And I will elaborate each of these in my next few slides. Next. So please bear with me. So I'm going to elaborate each of these 3 institutions that I mentioned in my previous slide. The membership of the Coordination Committee, it consists of the senior officials from member countries as determined. So basically, this is the government representatives, okay, from the countries surrounded the Arafura and Timor Sea. And we also add another clause that if we got into the second phase, which we do now, so the representative from the GFUNDP will also be asked to become part of the members of this coordination committee. So that's clear, the membership, who will be sitting at the member in the table when they have the meeting. Next, please. So next. So the function of this coordination committee is, number 1, is to develop the implementation plans and develop the development of associated costing and identification of funding sources. This is very important, because that if you want to make sure that this plan, as mentioned in the ecosystem objectives, do works, then you need to have a good plan in place. And then, of course, you have to review the progress and then do some adaptation strategies when it is already in the implementation. Next, so the coordination committee will follow this the following principles. So the CC meetings will be held once a year, but of course with flexibility. If needed to have more meetings of the coordination committee will rotate among the member countries, and the host country will serve as the chairperson. Host member will have the responsibility for all organizational matters, assisted by the secretariat and other countries if needed. Each member will bear the cost of participation of the ATSEA strategic action plan meetings, and when necessary, the coordination committee may hold meeting through electronic communication. Back then, we didn't know about these COVID things, but I think I'm happy that we already put that the last principle, because that's what actually happening now. Next. Next, please. So next, getting into the second institution. So this is the Stakeholder Partnership Forum, or SPF for short. So the membership of this Stakeholder Partnership Forum will consist of experts and practitioners involved in research and capacity development of course, in the Arafura Timor Sea, relevant to the SAP and the national action programs. So not just the strategic action program, but also the national developed by each country. Key sectors and interests, of course, determined within the national consultations, including the NGOs, academic groups, locals and indigenous groups, as well as the private sectors. So they have to self-nominate themselves, become a part, but the membership will be determined by each of the national secretariat. When it comes to the meeting, the CC, the Coordination Committee, will sit as an observer only. So when you have the SPF meeting, the government representatives, UNDP, they will sit as an observer. The chair of the Stakeholder Partnership Forum will be drawn and selected by the membership. And the meeting is scheduled to be annually, and hopefully it will be back-to-back with the Coordination Committee meeting, because that we thought would help not only just the logistics, but also in terms of the communication between the Coordination Committee members and the SPF. Next, please. So, next. And the roles of the SPF. What we expect from them is first foster partnership among the experts, the members, with the view to mobilize and coordinate activities to implement the strategic action program. The second one is, of course, to assist the Coordination Committee in the development of the SAP implementation, because we have bigger and larger group knowing better about the area to help basically the government. And of course, the third one, next, that's the second one, to assist the Coordination Committee, and the third one is to facilitate the implementation of the strategic action program through coordination of effort, alignment of efforts around the SAP, and generating partnerships. So this is very important because, as I mentioned earlier, about the knowledge and the depth of the network that each of these members of the SPF have. Next, please. So, okay, so we covered the Coordination Committee, the SPF. The last and most actually important is who is going to coordinate as the secretariat, who's going to run it. And that's what the third institution was being mandated to be established, and that is the ATSEA SAP Secretariat. In that discussion, we already decided among the countries that Indonesia will host that with a modest small office in Bali. I think Handoko already used that place. And thanks to the government of Indonesia, we decided beginning to dedicate the full building, but I don't think they will use the whole building, but share with the other research center, but at least we have the secretariat, permanent secretariat in Bali. Next. The coordinator will be nominated by one of the members, decided by the countries at the Coordination Committee meeting to run that secretariat. So this part needs to be elaborated further, because we need to have a clear understanding about the status and stuff. And we had a good experience of what the CTI, the Coral Triangle Initiative Secretariat did, and it took a lot of time for that discussion. So, but yes, you have the place, you have the office, the physical building is there, and then you must have a person to run that secretariat. Next, the roles of the coordinating secretariat, as like the other secretariat that you may know, it's to facilitate the operation itself, Coordination Committee and the SPF, coordinate the scheduling and organization of meetings, facilitate in the mobilization support, including by identifying funding opportunities and preparation for funding applications, serving as the project coordinator manager, that's our managers. So I think subject to be required by funding agency for specific project, develop and utilize networks with expert and practitioners. This is very much work with the SPF members, tracking the activities contributing to the SAP and the NAPs, and finally coordinate the ATSEA SAP implementation and monitoring reporting. So it is exactly the job, the work of a secretariat. So I think those are the three institutions that were mandated by the ministers to be established. I was hoping that this could be done within this ATSEA phase 2. And of course, you have all the means and hopefully the information on how to deal with and then to contact them, because they are still there. I know some of the people are still here. And next, please. This is, I think, my last slide, Ibu Moderator. So this is just to show you some of the meeting at the beginning. The first one I just picked when I look at my files. This is one of the last, not the last, but the beginning when we started to talk about the ATSEA project. So this is still ATSEF Steering Committee meeting in Bali. This is the top left in 2006. And then move forward. So this is the ATSEF Steering Committee meeting, but the first inception meeting of the ATSEA project. Some of you were there in Delhi. And the last one is during the ATSEA technical meeting when we started the discussion of the development of the governance institutions. This is with the people in Wollongong in Australia. Thank you to the governor of Australia for the support. If you notice some of the people there, like Aryo, he is not with us anymore now. So so sad, but he was so supportive of this project. So Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's my last slide. Next, please. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity one more time. I just have to congratulate and commend the people at the ATSEA-2 project. What you see and heard from me was sort of like the voice, and you saw the pictures from 6 years ago, but I think it is still relevant. And like I always say to Aimee and Handoko, I'm here to help you guys, and happy to be here. Thank you so much, and I refer back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Tonny. Very enlightening, and to learn about all the history of ATSEA from one of the initiators himself. So I kind of like bias a bit before, so I didn't give you any notification because I think your presentation is very, very important for everyone here in the webinar to really understand the objectives, the foundations, and also for them to be able to think the way forward to this SPF as this webinar is having the objective.
Thank you, Ibu. Thank you for your kind.
You're welcome, Pa. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I hear several very important messages from Dr. Handoko and also Dr. Tonny that the SPF is for experts and practitioners, and it's self-nomination. So if you are really interested in and care about the Arafura and Timor Seas, you might self-nominate yourself after the webinar series, or talk to the ATSEA team about the possibilities. Okay, so before we go on to the next presenters, I would like to just announce a little bit, remind you that we have a quote contest. If you found some interesting quotes from Pak Tonny or from other speakers in the next 3 days, please do so. Post it on your Facebook and tag the ATSEA-2 Facebook page or account, and have a chance to win a very interesting prize from the ATSEA team. And also there are a daily quiz that I will announce in the last part of this webinar. We have a daily quiz with interesting gifts as well. Also, please fill in the attendance list. There's a link to the attendance list that you could click and fill in. Please fill that in. And also, if you have questions along the presentation, please do write them on the chat box, and we will call on your attention during the Q&A session. So without further ado, I would like to call on Ibu Lida Pet to give her presentation. Unfortunately, Ibu Lida is not here with us today. She is out in the sea, but Ibu Lida has kindly recorded her presentation for us. So I give to the committee to show Ibu Lida's video.
Hello, good morning. My name is Lida Pet, and I've made this recording because I can't be with you today. I'm very sorry. My colleague Arwandrija is there in the virtual meeting, and he will be able to answer any questions or take notes that you'd like to share after my presentation. I'm going to open this PowerPoint. So I'm actually on a boat. on the way to the Forgotten Islands, which are part of the Inner Banda Arc and the Outer Banda Arc. And, not too far from the area that is going to be presented to you over the next couple of days. So let's get started. The task that I was working on had to do with facilitating the development of a regional governance mechanism. And I'll give you a bit of an update. This presentation provides a background to the progress that we've made, some of the early results, how we've looked at other regional governance mechanisms, and particularly, of course, in relation to how other mechanisms organize stakeholder engagement. Based upon that, we have a preliminary design of a potential stakeholder partnership forum, a number of options, and I'll introduce the background to that before we have a look at those options. And I'll talk a little bit about the next steps. So a little bit of the background to this task. As you're familiar, following from ATSEA Phase 1, where the expert forum developed a strategic action program. For Phase 2, it was already identified that the engagement of regional stakeholders should be more inclusive and be expanded to include different types of stakeholders beyond experts and academics. And in fact, to develop a formal mechanism for the Stakeholder Partnership Forum to become the main partner to the Regional Coordinating Committee. In order to come up with a draft design and facilitate consultation around the options, we've done a lot of desktop review of documents relevant to the Arafura Timor Sea, but also to other initiatives. And we've held a first round of consultations with people that are very intimately familiar with the background and the objective of the Arafura Timor Sea. The progress to date, we still need to complete a few more interviews with some of the country representatives, but most of the desktop study is done. From that, we've made some assumptions relating to the priority regional actions that would truly benefit from regional collaboration. We've looked at 12 other regional mechanisms and listed a number of observations with regards the type of collaborative action that they undertake and the structures through which they undertake collaboration. And we are crafting, or we have a version of a decision tree which can help the Arafura Timor Sea countries rank the various options for a stakeholder partnership forum and a regional mechanism. We have a number of assumptions that we've made, but one of the main would be that the form should follow the function, and I'll come to that point in a minute. And we'll use the results, progress to date, in a second round of country consultations. So here you'll see the 12 other regional collaborations that we've considered. In yellow, the ones that have been around for quite a while. So if that's an indication of success, that could be useful to consider the structures and the way that they set up regional collaborative actions. In orange, a number of the initiatives that have already been active for 20-25 years. And in green, some of the more recent collaborative initiatives. You see that I've grouped them in a way that you can identify those that have a large number of partners and stakeholders engaged in their collaboration, and those that are perhaps a little bit more complex or formally structured. So from looking at the way that those initiatives organize themselves and engage stakeholders, there's a number of general observations, which I think are not necessarily particular to one or only a few of those initiatives, and I've listed them here with regards engagement of stakeholders. I'm not going to go through all of them, but perhaps strong country ownership and commitments by the countries is key to the success of any regional initiative. That's probably no surprise. Also, I'll mention that, given the largely decentralized nature of coastal and marine resource management in most of the Arafura Timor member countries, the role and the participation of local government would be vital. That was also confirmed through the first round of interviews. Then from other initiatives, a number of specific observations that perhaps are relevant to a few or one of the other initiatives, but where we considered that these lessons are relevant for the Arafura Timor Sea. I'm not going to go through all of them, but maybe, yes, a regional program support unit could be formed to provide services to partners, projects, or initiative, indeed, so that they contribute to the achievement of the strategic action program. If indeed Arafura Timor Sea agrees on an important role for local government and local leaders, then establishing and really structuring a local leaders council could be quite important and relevant. Maybe the benefits and costs related to coordinating with a large number of partners, of course, needs to be considered as well. And PEMSEA, over decades, has quite some lessons learned. We often think that, it's important to have a large number of supporters and partners, and the benefits from collaborating with many organizations and individuals are often, quite positive. But there are obviously costs related to maintaining relationships and engagement with a large number of partners and stakeholders. Back to what must be achieved by engaging stakeholders and partners in a forum. The key transboundary issues have been identified with support of the expert forum in phase 1, and those resulted in 5 targets. And why I bring this up is that it would be relevant to identify the structure and perhaps the membership to the stakeholder partnership forum following a consideration of who could best and most efficiently contribute to achieving these targets. Secondly, why regional collaboration? This seems to be a given, but at moments like this, it's useful to step on the spot and consider what really are the benefits of regional collaboration. There are many activities that could and are being implemented at a national level. Extra overhead resources would be required in order to put people together and collaborate. And so for what issues would that be most relevant? I found that a lot of the experience and the frameworks for regional collaboration in the Pacific are very useful to consider. And this is just a table. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but that helps everybody consider which of the activities truly require collaboration across national boundaries and which issues could be implemented quite effectively at a local level. We asked a number of stakeholders or experts what they actually consider from the targets to require a regional mechanism. I will have to do these exercises, of course, more. But one of the early exercises resulted in what you see on the screen, where, addressing IUU fishing was considered to really benefit from regional mechanisms of collaborating, and perhaps reducing harmful impacts of nutrients or pollutants in coastal waters could also be done at a national or at a local level. So this is just an early sort of example of how you can imagine that not every priority action requires a lot of resources for regional collaboration, but some of them obviously will benefit a lot from regional collaboration. Secondly, then what type of regional collaboration would benefit the outcomes the most? And again, I've used sort of these 6 categories of regional collective action that were identified in some of the frameworks that Pacific countries use. Some of these are of a voluntary nature, whereas other types of collective action would require arrangements that are legally binding. We had a similar group of experts consider what type of regional collective action would be best to achieve the outcomes and the goals of the Arafura Timor Sea. And it was interesting that in this grouping, both harmonization scored very high, which, as you can see, would require or benefit greatly from legally binding arrangements, whereas also collaboration scored very high, and that could be achieved quite well with voluntary arrangements. So perhaps, and following this, a hybrid can be imagined where some of the targets in the Strategic Action Program would benefit from a legal arrangement, a legally binding arrangement, whereas others could be implemented more loosely. So if we bring that context to the options for a stakeholder partnership forum, perhaps there could be, you can imagine a matrix where, if you imagine that all the regional collaboration would be voluntary, you could imagine that you have a few partners, maybe a mix of formal and informal partners, or perhaps it would be beneficiary to have a lot of informal partners. And you could also imagine that perhaps for those type of regional collaborations that are legally binding, you would have perhaps a better setting of partners that are quite formal. So we've tried to group some of these existing regional initiatives in this table in order to help ourselves look at how they then structure their stakeholder engagements for either voluntary collaboration or a hybrid of voluntary and more legally binding collaboration. So with that sort of in the background, we're considering that perhaps a combination, a hybrid of legally binding collaboration and voluntary collaboration could be the future for this region. And those three sort of hybrid options could look like this, where you have a rather simple and perhaps more formal stakeholder partnership forum in support of sustainable development that includes mostly and primarily local leaders, facilitated by national focal points for the Arafura Timor Sea Collaborative, who are mostly the implementers of the activities at the national level as agreed and directed by the senior officials meeting of these 4 country members on the targets, facilitated by a regional secretariat or a program support unit that can bring in technical expertise and assistance as needed, but also that could facilitate cross-country learning for these local leaders as part of regional exchanges. A second option builds somewhat on the first, but would include a larger number of informal partners. Again, the function of a perhaps regional secretariat or a program support unit would be secretarial to the senior officials meeting, but you would see that the informal partners organize themselves through colleges. Some of the other regional initiatives seem to benefit a lot from that, and you can imagine that perhaps the stakeholders or partners organize themselves around the 5 targets, or perhaps around the type of stakeholder that they are. And the secretariat or the program support units could also service these colleges in the way that the discussions and the activities that are motivated through these colleges would be feeding into the SOM, but also that the opportunities for stakeholders from the colleges to directly support the local leaders in their implementation of their national activities could be facilitated through additional technical assistance or fundraising. And then perhaps option number 3, where again, building on the previous option, you would now have a lot more informal partners. The local leaders would be key implementers of the national level work and also key beneficiaries of regional learning and exchanges. But in the stakeholder partnership form, you could imagine that these colleges are complemented with centers of excellence, perhaps investors and companies. And in order to ensure effective contribution of all these stakeholders to the work that needs to progress to achieve the targets, it would be recommended that these local leaders actually are structured a little bit more clearly through perhaps a council with assistance of a dedicated small secretariat. The role of the, again, regional secretariat or support unit would still be similar as in the previous options, but the role of the local leaders council and a small secretariat within the stakeholder partnership forum would actually be much stronger. Now, these are a number of options that can be considered. Some of the approaches can be merged and matched. But let's think a little bit about who should actually take part in the stakeholder partnership forum. And that brings us back again to what was the purpose of it in the first place. So being inclusive is a very positive approach to try and address and collaborate, issues that are of a magnitude that an individual organization cannot address by themselves, but it also comes with consequences and it requires commitments. So at this stage in time, it is relevant to consider who would be perhaps the most relevant stakeholder and partner to participate in such a forum. Is that stakeholder indeed directly related to the issue identified? Could they effectively contribute or accomplish a particular purpose to ensure that some of the threats and some of the issues are being addressed? Are these stakeholders able or enabled to perform their function in the best possible manner? Is their contribution efficient? And is also what is contributed through the stakeholders easily adopted, and so does it carry through for sustainability of the activities and the resources shared through this mechanism. So these are some of the questions that we're going to look at by applying a decision tree over the next few weeks. And I'd like to ask you perhaps during the next days of these webinars to keep in mind, what type of stakeholders and why those stakeholders would be key to include in the stakeholder partnership forum in order to function efficiently and effectively towards progressing the agenda and achieve the results that the Arafura Timor Sea wants to and needs to achieve together. So I think that there's going to be a little questionnaire for all of you to fill out. And again, through the next few days, as you get, a lot of really exciting information and updates from a whole bunch of experts who are working hard, to come up with meaningful priorities to collaborate. I'd like you to keep in mind who could contribute best to achieve the goals for the Arafura Timor Sea region. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ibu Lida, for the presentation. Although Ibu Lida is not with us today, We have Bapak Wawan Ridwan who will be helping us to answer the questions that you may have. Ibu Lida has summarized her presentation about the background why the ATS region needs a regional governance mechanism, and also the ongoing assessment, and also the preliminary design for the SPF itself. So there are three options proposed. You, ladies and gentlemen, could shape the way of this SPF. So fill in the questionnaire that is given by the committee, or if you're around Bali, just come to ATS Secretariat anytime. If you're not around Bali, call or email the ATSEA team anytime with your ideas and inputs. So you are very much awaited to provide any constructive feedback. Okay, so next on we have Ms. Aimee Gonzales to provide comments or questions towards the presentation. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Ma'am Aimee Gonzales, please.
Yeah, thank you, Galuh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to commend Pak Tonny and Ibu Lida for the very comprehensive presentations. They're both powerful speakers, as you already all know and are aware, right? Their presentations also complement each other. Pak Tonny talked about the evolution, the history, giving us a bit of inspiration and why Arafura Timor Seas were put together. This project was put together, and what the vision of the project is. Ibu Lida is walked us through the options for regional governance mechanism and also on the participation of various stakeholders. Now, having said that, it makes my task easier because they've already said a lot that's needed and key elements of what needs to be done. So I would just like to add some observations and already highlighting some of those already mentioned by them. Now, these observations are based on PEMSEA's experience when it undertook a similar journey in evolving from a transboundary project into a regional coordinating mechanism 2 decades ago. Now, I should say that in this Zoom meeting as well, we have Kate and Ingrid. You will see their names in the participants list, and you probably know them. They have been with PEMSEA longer than me, so they also would have a rich experience of what and reflections on PEMSEA's experience and journey. So my reflections would be largely based on PEMSEA's experience, but it will also draw lessons from the experience of the development and evolution of regional mechanisms in other parts of the world. Because when PEMSEA was looking into how to transform from a project into a regional coordinating mechanism, it also drew from the Baltic experience, from the Mediterranean, and others that were long established before the East Asian Seas Partnership was created. Now, first of all, so 10 reflections. One is that there is a need for rigorous preparation in conceptualizing and planning. And I think the first project, took us 4 years. It ended in 2014, and now we're starting again. So the time, should not be underestimated. This takes time. In developing PEMSEA, just to give an example, the Secretariat then had to work with 14 countries in ASEAN plus China, Japan, RO Korea, and DPRK. Now, there are 4 countries in Arafura Timor Seas. Suffice it to say, there may be bigger transaction costs with more countries, but the fact of the matter is the vast differences in socioeconomic, cultural, and political situation of Indonesia, Timor-Leste, Papua New Guinea, and Australia, and their needs and capacity should be taken into account in the transition planning. Now, from planning, consultation and coordination with all the countries and the stakeholders of these countries is also important. And so I commend ATSEA-2 Secretariat for creating the Stakeholder Partnership Forum from the beginning of the process. There was ATSEF-1, of course, in ATSEF-1. Now, the current global pandemic is a challenge given that in our cultures, face-to-face interaction is really important. So this also bodes well for our creativity and how to reach out and engage relevant stakeholders. I believe Lida has given us some options on how to proceed, which I will also comment on later. Now, so planning, consultation, coordination. The third is that the economic concerns are also strong motivation for or against a regional mechanism. Now, in the East Asian seas, it wasn't so difficult because economic center of gravity has been shifted or is already shifting to the region. It's the fastest growing region with dramatic reductions in income and poverty, of course, but equally, the need to protect and sustainably manage coastal and marine resources are highly compelling, 9 of the world's mega cities, population of more than 10 million, are located in the coast of East Asia, along with another dozen cities, which has more than 5 million residents. Now, it covers 7 million square kilometers, 234,000 kilometer coastline also, so of East Asia. And then these are some of the most ecological and economically important sea areas in the world. Now, East Asian seas is home to over a third of all coral reefs and mangroves and the highest levels of biodiversity for coral reef risk, mollusks, mangroves, and seagrass species, 83% of world's agricultural products, and over 32 million tons of annual fish catch. Marine and coastal industries such as ports, shipping, fishing, and coastal tourism comprise 15 to 20% of the GDP in some East Asian countries. It is also an important conduit for 90% of world trade through shipping. Now, in the video that we saw before, the leaders have emphasized the importance of the ecosystems and living marine resources and fisheries for food and livelihood security in the Arafura Timor Seas. I know that there will be an upcoming study, so we will have figures on the economic value and articulate more clearly and strongly, more compellingly on this what's at stake at the Arafura Timor Seas, threats of land and sea-based pollution, climate change, overfishing, degradation, and loss of species, etc. So those will have to be communicated, and particularly the economic value. And Tony has also mentioned this, that there were there could have been some political issues, but the parties made sure that political and historical concerns should not distract them from the goals and objectives of creating a regional mechanism. And I think that's important, to focus on cooperation and leave territorial political sovereignty discussions to another relevant fora. And fifth, and I think this is important, and this was emphasized by Ibu Lida's presentation, is that one of the lessons of failing to operationalize commitments and implement, shared strategy is often due to lack of capacity. So capacity building is a very important part of this partnership mechanism. PEMSEA created a network of learning centers, for example, and focused on capacity building and training, especially at the local level. I think she mentioned this as well. And so there are mechanisms that are tried and tested and could be good models for the Arafura Timor Seas. Now, Tony mentioned about legal instruments, also Ibu Lida did. So a legal instrument is not a prerequisite for the success of a regional mechanism. However, it may help to provide a definite framework for actions and rationale over the long term. A case in point in PEMSEA, it would have taken us longer to develop if we had pushed for a legally binding protocol with mandatory country contributions at the start of the journey. It would have taken years, and probably we would just have been taking baby steps now. So in the end, the founders opted for the minimum requirements to set up, a legal mechanism with an international legal personality, hosting agreement with privileges and immunities in the Philippines. But actually, personally, and this is my personal view, on hindsight, I often wonder if it would have been better to push for built-in mandatory contributions, like the Coral Triangle CFF model, and worked out on individual country ratification as well. And we are doing that now with Indonesia and PEMSEA's and their voluntary contribution in PEMSEA. So these are important decisions to be made aware from the beginning of the process, and you cannot just leave it much later in the game. 7, the clearer and more concrete and more realistic the goals, the shared strategy, the better the chances of success, and also the timetable in developing, in the evolution of the mechanism. And Tonny has started to share this. What is the story? What is the compelling narrative of Arafura Timor Seas? What are the ties that bind all countries? What is the value add? I think we've seen that in the video, and Tonny articulated the history and evolution of ATSEA-2. But I hope we will be able to continue and effectively communicate how it will help, what changes it will bring, what impacts on people and changes in the water it will bring, and how it will help coastal communities like Daru in Papua New Guinea, Panatuto in Timor-Leste, Rotinadao district in East Nusa Tenggara. We have to concretize it at that level to be able to convince people to join the partnership and to support the partnership. For the Arafura Timor Seas, I think there is a first mover advantage because, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there is already a mechanism that is working, regional mechanism in the Arafura Timor Seas. But then, you go back to the first point of the need for rigorous planning and communications. The more people understand and share the goals, I'm on my 8th point, the goals and process also will help. So communications is key. Having a communication strategy from the beginning is key. Attracting private sectors, those that could help with the financial viability, business partners, small, medium enterprises would be also helpful. And I think Lida has some experience bringing with her from Coral Triangle on how to do that. We should capitalize that. Blue economy was not yet a theme when ATSEA-1 and even ATSEA-2 was developed. So we could also see how we could, build on opportunities with the pandemic and blue economy, blue recovery, reset types of opportunities. We also need to cultivate champions, and I'm not just saying those that have personal commitments to the project. I think it is also important to have organizational commitment. And so at the moment, we are working with the Ministry of Fisheries in Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and Papua New Guinea, Ministry of Environment in Australia. But I think we would need more allies from foreign affairs, from finance, from planning, if you want this to be successful, apart from the other partners. The number 9, the viability of a regional mechanism is highly reliant on reliable financing system. And this is an experience from PEMSEA also. If you want to transition and transform into a self-sufficient organization and not just be project-based, you have to have a sustainability plan that will include diverse mix of funding sources. Country contributions is important. Investment options, I think would be good. Payments for services rendered by Secretariat from countries and other partners would be also important. So I think from the start, we should have like a blueprint where we could have stepwise approach. And ATSEA-2 is in the right direction. I think the next year, or even I think this year, I'm not sure, Mashan would know. I think they will be looking at the financial options also for funding a regional mechanism. Lastly, monitoring is important because the impacts of the mechanism needs to be known. Otherwise, support wane. You have a groundswell of support in the first 2-3 years, but then donors or other supporters would question, so what has been the impact? What have we achieved? So having quantitative targets is also good. And I think we already have that in the SAP targets on IUU fishing, for example. So in order to manage expectation, I would emphasize, and that in developing a good regional governance mechanism, while it will take years, we need to have a stepwise approach, clearly written in a blueprint. I mean, it's an evolving plan, but I think it will help in developing this kind of blueprint or roadmap or whatever you'd call. Now, on the stakeholder partnership forum, I think there is a preference for low complexity and few partners at the start of the project. I think that is how also PEMSEA started, few partners, and not all 11 country partners that have signed into the partnership agreement came at the same time. I think initially there were 6, and then the others followed. So you just have to continue going at it. But then I think four should be manageable, hopefully, and we can have them all at the same start at the same time. So on a stakeholder partnership forum, I think it is clear that yes, it is important. On how it should be run and managed, I think the draft has given us a first cut on what could be the nuts and bolts on some, but it has to develop it some more. I am missing a better presentation on the pros and cons of the regional mechanisms. So not a theoretical presentation, but really looking at this mechanism side by side, I think will help.
Just a quick time check.
Okay. Yeah, I will be quick. For the model, I think PEMSEA's governance mechanism is well documented. We actually have rules of governance that the Secretariat could take a look, members can take a look, and also the consultants. It is described as a good model. It has some 4 features: Partnership Council, which has 2 components, the technical and intergovernmental sessions. The Partnership Council actually formulates program and operational policy in support of a regional strategy. So I suppose the SAP, the ATS SAP, will become the regional strategy, or a refined version will come out of that. And then, so I mentioned there's an intergovernmental and technical session. So in the intergovernmental session, it is the member countries who make up the intergovernmental session. They can provide guidance, policy guidance, review work programs, approve budgetary allocation, monitor progress, etc., etc. Now, the technical session is where I think would be the equivalent of a stakeholder partnership forum. And I would argue for not having an independent SPF, but actually it's attached and is part of the technical, part of the governance mechanism, so that there is some accountability and there is commitment. Now, the technical session of PEMSEA is composed of member governments, stakeholder partners. It receives technical and scientific reports from partners, identifies, evaluates projects, work programs, provides technical advice, and promotes partnership interactions on topics of common interest. So there is also like memorandum of agreement between the Secretariat and a specific non-country partner, so-called non-country partner, which is equivalent to, I think, stakeholder partners that we have. We also have network advisors to help with capacity development and training. I think that's ATSEA equivalent to regional centers of excellence, PEMSEA network of local of learning centers. We have an executive committee. I'm not sure whether that's really needed if there's only 4 countries. So probably the intergovernmental session can already act as the proper board. Reporting mechanism is done through
Sorry, ma'am. The time is up.
Time is up. Okay. Just to emphasize that on the non-country partners, the rules of governance, I said, spells it out. There's admission procedures. They have to be duly organized. They would have worked with the Secretariat or country partners, has current projects and programs in the region. And then they need to also provide a statement of declaration with which, commitment to adhering to the regional strategy, and they support Secretariat efforts, they commit to the programs and willing to enter into a formal MOA. There's even some withdrawal procedures as well, if that helps. So that concludes my presentation. I'm sorry I ran out of time and I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I asked Mas Han whether I should make one and he said no because I'm just a reactor. So I'm beginning to regret that because I think it would have been better if I spelled out the 10 points that I had, but that's okay. The proceedings can document and we could send that to you later. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Ma'am Aimee Gonzales, for the very insightful comments to the presentation. There are so many lessons learned from your presentation, from the PEMSEA journey, and hopefully we will capture all of that and make it as an input for the future of ATSEA SPF. Okay, so next panelist, we have Dr. Arwandrija Rukma. Good morning, almost noon, Pak. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Arwandrija Rukma.
Thank you, Galuh. Thank you for the opportunity. So let me start by sharing the screen because like Aimee just said, sorry. I think better to have several slides so that the audience can have some ideas, can stick with some of the ideas that I will present. But first of all, thank you, Pak Tonny. I think it's really kind of deja vu to see you again under an ATSEA hat after, I don't know, maybe 16 years ago when we met for the first time and we discussed the project, in fact, draft project document of ATSEF together with UNDP, Jakarta at that time, Pak Kisan Kodai, I still remember. And then it evolves, the process has been evolving to this stage. So congratulations, Pak Tonny Wagey, for this achievement. It's a very a proud attainment, I think. Yeah. Also, thank you, Bu Lida, for the presentation, although you're not here, but Pak Wawan is here. Pak Wawan, thank you. And Bu Aimee. So I try as much as possible to avoid being reminded by Galuh later while I'm still presenting. So I have this slide to guide me so that I can speak within 10 minutes time allowance given to me. So my standpoint, the basis for my response or assessment is from the past and current experience, in which this tells us that there are lessons learned from previous and current regional collaboration, whereby they have similar thematic area of cooperation like at ATSEA, and then also similar geography of cooperation. The locus of cooperation is also similar or part of or smaller part of the other regional collaborations geographic area. Also the similar member countries and stakeholders. Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, Australia, also as development partner, and then it also has similar goals of cooperation. So I think you understand, I think you already guessed which organizations, which regional organization I'm talking about, which I was part of it in the past for 3 years. And it is CTICFF. And I use this organization as the benchmark, as the reference in giving my observation. So I'm not talking about other organizations as the benchmark. It's solely the CTICFF, especially when I work as coordinator of the regional secretariat and working together with the member countries, Indonesia, PNG, Timor-Leste, Australia. I see Pak Andrew Check here as development partner, working on areas similar with what has been written in the SAP. The area is also part of the seascape, priority seascape of Coral Triangle and similar goals of cooperation. So with all those lessons learned, if I can summarize in one word, the mantra is being simple or simplicity. That's the main lesson learned from CTICFF that ATSEA could learn. And what are the aspects of simplicity? I think the documents, the recommendation prepared by Hatfield, presented by Bu Lida, have provided very useful framework of thinking that helped me to answer or to provide you with what I mean by simplicity. There is a graph that Bu Lida has prepared on level of complexity, and I've consulted Pak Wawan also prior to the discussion on what does it mean, you know. So I interpret it as number of actions, and the number of partners is also a determinant on the simplicity factor. And last one is on the type of collaborative actions, which in Hatfield's recommendation, they categorize two main actions. One is legally binding actions, and the other one is voluntary actions. So I will elaborate more. This is what is provided in the document prepared by Hatfield that I will use as the basis of my very, very brief and short analysis. As Bu Lydia explained earlier, there are two variables on level of complexity and the number of partners that we can see from this graph. So which pathway that ATSEA could choose to or base or learning from other regional organizations? I propose for three stages, and each stage may cover several years, can be 5 years, 6 years, but I think minimum for 5 years. Starting from having low level of complexity of ATSEA, in terms of its number of priority actions, we know it's already determined, it's already decided in sub-document, but I think we can focus on a fewer number of priority actions, similar with CTICFF. They also have regional priority actions. They have meetings to select priority actions, and then also focus on regional character of the actions. The things that can show the transboundary nature of the activities, collaborations that shows the added value of doing things together as 4 countries working in the same sea, yeah. And then in the first 5 years, ATSEA could also choose the low number of partners. In this case, I'm talking about the SPF, Sustainable Partnership Forum, not the member countries, because member countries has been fixed. Yeah. In that case, I'm also using the framework recommended by Hatfield. There are 4 criteria on the relevance, because not all partners are quite relevant. So we need to be very, very selective in this stage, yeah, in the low number of partner stage in the first 5 years. And then those who contribute to the effectiveness in achieving SAP and NAP, and doing it in most efficient way, yeah. And then have, of course, impact on the ground, have benefits to the people and to the nature, and then it can sustain, and then it can go up to next stage with, depends on the evaluation. If you think that it's time for ATSEA to absorb or cover a higher level of complexity and a higher level or more numbers of partners, then it can go to the next round of stage. Yeah. Okay. And then also the Hatfield recommendation, Bu Lida has explained this. Yeah. The option for a sustainable stakeholder partnership forum has 2 main parameters. It's on the scope, which is comprised of 3 categories. One is on the voluntary actions, second is on the legally binding actions, and then hybrid, which is the combination of both. And then there are also 3 types of partners that Bu Lida proposed: few formal partners, formal and informal partners, and then many informal partners. So I will use this as my basis for recommendation, or going further or make it more sharpened from what Bu Lida has said. So this is what I propose, because in Bu Lida's presentation, you put CTI CFF as organization with voluntary actions, yeah. While we know with those SOM meetings, with the ministerial meetings, with the working group meetings, technical working group meetings, with the negotiation discussion involving Ministry of Foreign Affairs from each country, how to reach consensus on even point and comma and colon by words, line by line. If that is considered as voluntary actions, yeah, then I wonder how ATSEA can do more formal than that. How ATSEA can, be more legally binding, because this is recommended by Hatfield that the hybrid action that has both voluntary and legally binding actions are the type of decisions, or activities that can be chosen by ATSEA. So I wonder if the way CTI-CFF works, that already has a lot of high degree of formality and legally binding decisions, documents, actions, considered as voluntary actions, then it's difficult for me to imagine how ATSEA can be more legally binding, or can produce more legally binding than what is defined here as voluntary actions. So my proposal is that at early stage of ATSEA can start with voluntary actions, and then having formal and informal partner colleges. Why I find this important to have formal and informal rather than few formal partners, yeah? Because if we refer to what I say earlier on simplicity principle, then it should be few formal partners. I found few formal partners is too narrow, because we need to have also informal partners that can help sustain the activities, that we cannot just depend on few formal partners.
Parwan, sorry, I have to give you a time check.
Okay, thanks, Galuh. I try to avoid that, but I cannot. Sorry. So this is some challenges with legally binding actions if we choose this as a ATSEA's pathway. There will be time consuming, there will be resource exhaustion, there will be a lot of transaction costs, as Aimee said, for negotiations in reaching consensus. That's happened with CTI. In the implementation of the actions, also it will be quite challenging, especially also when we want to enforce the legally binding decisions or activities. Not to mention also on the reporting that there will be some diplomacy involved, and then also hierarchy in decision making, because the negotiators will need several layers before it can say yes or no, or say other things during the discussion. And this is the last one, Galuh, I think. This is also from Hatfield recommendations on type of collaborations, the regional one that can be chosen by ATSEA, which one that is legally binding, which one is voluntary, and it was proposed to be hybrid. To me, I think, as consequence of voluntary action, let's focus, or it will be most realistic for ATSEA to focus on this green part of the text, on coordination, cooperations, and collaborations. And this is the type of collaboration that ATSEA can focus, be functional, be useful, be addressing the needs, and be practical rather than being too formal or too procedural in decision making. Also, remember to always have a need-based capacity building activities, technical assistance programs, learning and exchange, rather than putting additional burden, administrative one, or like in activities on guidance or manual development, that is not in the KPI of the stakeholders involved in ATSEA. Also, you may consider filling the requested gap with local solutions rather than implanting a foreign or alien donor-driven approach that may sound unfamiliar to the stakeholders in ATSEA area. And last one, this is very important. I think Handoko believes this very much. Let's build sense of camaraderie or togetherness or sense of a family, a big family, and that's what we do also in CTI. Rather than executing what has been agreed by the leaders in the past, that is seen more as assignment or as an order, which for the implementers or doers of SAP and NAP is, it's not something that it's close to their heart. So having this togetherness is very important. And last one, Galuh, on the participation of local government. I reflect on the experience of CTI Local Government Network, and I recommend this, that the participation of district or region or municipality within an ATS member country should be assisted. Yeah? They need to have capacity building in the country first, or they need to have a common understanding, awareness within the country before they can participate individually at the regional level. And then also, because especially in Indonesia, we have a provincial government that oversees 0 to 12 nautical miles of water. So coordination with provincial government is also important. I understand there are some district sites like in Maumere, in where else, in other area, yeah. But please remember that when it comes to marine water management, especially within 0 to 12 nautical miles, it's the authority of the provincial government. So bring that level of government into the discussion too. And last one, a national focal point needs to be consulted because this is cross-boundaries issues, intergovernmental area that needs to consider the sovereignty and some sensitive issues that national government has. And then with that, I think we can have effective district local government leader participation in the SPF. Thank you, Galuh. Terima kasih, obrigado.
Thank you so much, Pak Arwan. Very, very interesting presentation and sharing and inputs to the ATSEA Stakeholder Partnership Forum. Before I open the Q&A session, I would like to come back to our presenters first. I see some questions and inputs already coming in the chat box. Please keep them coming. If you have questions or if you have inputs, please put them in the chat box and we will draw that to our attention, also to your attention. Before coming to Tonny Wagey as the senior of ATSEA, please allow me to come back to Pak Wawan first from Hatfield. Pak Wawan, you have around 5 minutes to comment on the inputs from Pak Arwan and also Miss Aimee. But before, ladies and gentlemen, I would suspect we are scheduled to finish at 11, but I would suspect we go over 11. So please kindly apologies if we go over time. Hopefully you still have the time to follow this webinar until the very end. Okay, Pak Wawan, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Galuh. Good morning, everyone. I'm representing Ibu Lida, who right now is in the remote area. She is in the remote area. It's not accessible for the internet access. So Ibu Lida give mandate to me just to make note and also to possible respond maybe some question is rising what Ibu Lida was presented through recording facilities. Thank you also, Pak Tonny. That yes, your presentation is what we call is supported with what Ibu Lida was presented. And also thank you for Aimee and also to Pak Arwan for what we call your comment or input. I think it is all will enrich Ibu Lida assessment. Well, actually, what Ibu Lida what we call recommend, there's the three possible what we call the type of or model of the formation of the stakeholder partnership forum. There's a voluntary basis or might be a legal binding basis and also hybrid. On her recommendation, actually it's not coming to the decision which one among those three will be more preferable for ATSEA stakeholder partnership forum. But also thank you, Pak Arwan, for suggestion might be that CTI, CFF will be more better, more what we call simple, attracting because the voluntary basis will follow legally binding in the end of the what we call the peace the strategic process. Yeah, I think I will make note with if other what we call common or might be question from other participants. But what I heard from Aimee and also Pak Arwan, it is all comments, not question to Ibu Lida. So I just thank for your comment. I've already make all note, and I will what we call submit it to Ibu Lida. We will discuss to Ibu Lida. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Wawan.
5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so now we go back to Pak Tonny. Pak Tonny, please, you have around 5 minutes to comment on Pak Arwan and Ms. Aimee's comments.
Okay, thank you so much. And yeah, first of all, I have to admit I was sort of like on and off, but you know, with the help of Pak Handoko, I got some ideas of what the comments Aimee and also Pak Arwan were making. So I think this is my standpoint is that, well, the ministers have spoken as to what they would like to see with this Arafura Timor Sea initiatives. Of course, the ideal situation, we focus on the transboundary issue within the JEF and IW International Waters process. We have to start with this transboundary analysis. So what are the issues? And then we bring to the program and implementation, right? So those are the sort of the steps that we have to follow. Unfortunately, Papua New Guinea was not there. They were ready, but they said, well, let's see what you guys, basically the three countries, will do. And yes, we have to move on. So it is not of sort of less important, but maybe they will not see the importance of that. So I would very much encourage my colleague in the ATSEA to re-engage with them, because I think there are still opportunities. Although you could see from the map that the part of Papua New Guinea involvement is very small. Secondly, now about the options or let's say the models for these partnerships. I think rather than we reinvent the wheel, because we discussed it with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, you know, from all countries, with the help of some experts, and some of them were here in this meeting room. So yeah, same issues, legally binding, non-legally binding, so on and so forth. But I think when it comes to the formulations, I think we had achieved quite a lot by having this ministerial declaration, and also the gesture from the governor of Indonesia to provide this secretariat, you know, in Bali. It was stated in the declaration. So there you go, and it was supported, and that's, I think it's it's a good sign that yes, the government supports, but as you know, when the government and the stakeholders, the others, will they have to sit down. So rather than reinvent, I think we have to just restart the engine, because the people are still there, and also the spirit was still there, and now we could see we can of course update and add to this ecosystem issue, the transboundary ecosystem issue, that sort of like being the important issue in the Arafura and Timor Sea, as to compared to 10 years or 6 years ago. So now we have a different issue. But so Ibu Galuh, Ibu Moderator, and ladies and gentlemen, I think we have this opportunity. That's what I'm trying to say. Papua New Guinea needs to be engaged or re-engaged. We have already the historical discussion we have. I'm happy to see that, you know, under the ATSEA-2 mandate, I think it's very clear what needs to be done. And yeah, I think the support is there. Having a ministerial declaration is one of a achievement, I think, as you compare to the other in the sort of the regional cooperations. It's not simple to get that, but I think we were there. So that shows the support from the government. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Pak Tonny. I really appreciate your enthusiasm and spirit and inspiration for all of us that will hopefully restart the engine, hopefully. So as we all know, I always say this, because all that declaration, everything, it's not the objectives, but it's just a mean for us all to achieve our common objectives. Yes. Okay, so I will then open the Q&A question, but first we have the first question from former ATSEF member Ibu Karen Edivane. Did I mention your name right, Ibu Karen? Please,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm on video. Am I on video?
Yes, you are.
I am on video. Okay. Yeah, my question was really just confirming Ibu Lida's presentation, which has also been confirmed by Musra's presentation and now been followed up by Pak Tonny, is that there's just the need to keep things simple, the need for low complexity, I think is really important in this region. There's 4 million people, only 400,000 people in Northern Australia, and we don't need a highly complex regional governance framework like PEMSEA, you know. And also Tonny's arguments, and very, very well said, that we already have such a long history of ATSEF as well, and including national secretariats. And we have a long history of working together, both at the national level and at the regional level as well. And I would say that there's a lot of excellent insights to be had from talking to the ATSEF and ATSEA national bodies or forums, and exploring some of the governance of their forums in moving forward as well, because there's been a lot of work done on developing the governance framework at the national level, particularly how research stakeholders work with governments, work with NGOs, work with the broader communities. And I'd be, as an academic and a former ATSEF regional secretariat member, I'd be very happy to share some of that documents with the consultants as well. So yes, as Tonny said, you know, it's important to recognise all the work that's being done and and the implications of the ministerial declaration, and what we might need is not to change the car, but just to get it restarted and to re-energise it, give it a full tank of petrol.
Thank you, Ibu Karen. So may I directly open the mic to Pak Tonny to maybe comment on this?
Well, I don't want to take the floor too much, but thank you, Ibu Galuh. Well, yeah, Ibu Karen, thank you. Ibu Karen was one of the earlier pioneer champion of Arafura Timor Sea initiative. Yeah, when we first went to Darwin many years ago, and Ibu Karen was there. So and also she was involved in the Timor-Leste. So I would like to see and would love to see more involvement, let's say, from our colleagues from Timor-Leste and definitely from Australia. But as I said, ask and invite Papua New Guinea representative. That will make your job, Handoko, and everybody much easier.
There's also something very important about the ATSEF, building on ATSEF as well, is that there's that long history of relationships. And if you're trying to establish a forum which feels like a network, which feels like a family, and feels like a community of shared interests, there's a very good reason for to strengthening and building on the ATSEF legacy as well. Because it had a wonderful family feeling. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
That's so heartwarming to hear, Ibu Karen and Pak Tonny. So I see Miss Aimee Gonzales raise her hands. Miss Aimee, could you open your mic, maybe give a short question or comments? Are you raising your hand, Aimee? If not, we will come back to Aimee later, but there are questions here that we have from the floor.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was trying to unmute myself, but I think the control is with the secretariat.
Oh, okay.
I want to respond directly to Ibu Karen, because I think she mentioned that PEMSEA's structure is complex, and my presentation was not to impose, PEMSEA's structure if it was deemed complex. It's more, that these are the lessons that we've learned. These are, I am for a simple, and I think I mentioned that I am for a simple structure, and glad to hear that there has been some work that's been done in ATSEA-1, and that we should re-energize those. I'm all for that. So I just want to clarify that, because I think the one thing that people might get from this workshop is that there is a rejection of PEMSEA's regional governance mechanism for ATSEA. And we are not trying to impose that at all. I think that we are trying to see what best and how best to adapt, the mechanism that could work well for the region, for Arafura Timor Seas. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Aimee. Well noted. And then we will, yes?
Yeah, I just want to say I wasn't at all implying PEMSEA was trying to impose any sort of governance. I think the PEMSEA governance works really well, and it's great. But yeah, there's I think because ATSEF has been around for such a long time, and some of the players have changed, some people don't realise the long history it's had. And how much work has actually gone into the governance, looking at the governance already.
Okay, thank you so much, Karen. I see Pa Arwan raise hand, but before Pa Arwan, I would like to invite also Professor Zainal, who would like to speak before. Already mentioned that he would like to say something. Professor Zainal, could the committee unmute Pa Zainal?
Thank you, Ibu. Thank you, Ibu. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate what Pak Tonny presenting. Yeah, it's reminding all the activity at previous ATSEA. My question actually is quite changed. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Pak Tonny and Ibu. Ibu siapa tadi presentasi?
Lida.
Sorry, Ibu Lida ya. So when we see the regional organization like CTI, CFF, yeah, Coral Triangle, CTI, CFF, yeah. The coverage area is 2 large marine ecosystem, Sulu, Sulawesi Sea, and ATSEA. Are there also part of the program at CTI, CFF? This is important. Otherwise, is it possible, right? For example, ATSEA actually part of the CTI, CFF, right? A program like this at the end, instead of developing so many regional organization. Is that possible like that, Pak Tonny? Considering the budget, I think. So instead of building a lot of regional office and whatever you call it, but just make even simple. So using CTI, CFF, if this ATSEA and Sulu Sulawesi is part also the area of work of CTF, CFF. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Zainal. I see there's some questions that Pak Tonny and also the ATSEA team actually could answer. But please, I invite Pak Tonny and then Pak Wawan to represent Ibu Lida to maybe comment on Pak Zainal's question.
Okay, can I go first? Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Pak.
So thank you, Prof. Yes, as you recall, the discussion involving CTI, CFF, and ATSEA. Well, from the technical point of view, it is a bit difficult, Pak Zainal, Prof. Zainal, to involve the ATSEA area because, as you know, Coral Triangle Initiative has a very clear boundaries, as to speak, like, you know, in terms of what's in and what's out, right? Remember, even Brunei Darussalam was not part of that because, you know, they're less of something, number of coral species required to be part of the, to be identified as the Coral Triangle highlight. So is the Arafura Sea also, but I could see your point of view from the management and also from the governance point of view. So technically, it is a bit difficult part of the Arafura Sea. And if you could, when you zoom into the Coral Triangle areas, you could see, like, you know, they sort of skip the Arafura Sea because it was not part of the Coral Triangle. Now, and we had a very, very long discussion about that. Governance, yes, most of the countries in the Arafura Timor Sea are also part of the Coral Triangle countries, the CT6, right? So, and Australia is there to support the CTI and also the ATS. Now, in terms of how we can define and establish this SPF, the Stakeholder Partnerships Forum, and subsequently the Secretariat, I think we can learn from how CTI was established. And you were part also of that process. It is not that simple because then you have to have clear objective in mind about the sustainability. What happened after ATSEA-2, and then is there going to be a permanent secretariat? The governor of Indonesia provided that already. But will it be possible that, you know, the government support? We cannot think about ATSEA-3, right? So the help from PEMSEA and others, this is the opportunity in the next 4 or 5 years, you know, we need to establish that. And reflecting from the CTI, CFF processes, I think we definitely can learn something. And Ibu Galuh, I'm just browsing on the questions again about, you know, the PNG, and I think I just want to make my last comment on that. My recommendation is yes, yeah, we need to engage and re-engage, you know, ask them. But eventually it comes to you know, the government, their own government willingness to support this. We discussed and talked with the NFA, the National Fisheries Authority of PNG, maybe we clearly have to, with the help of UNDP, PNG, talk to the Ministry of Fisheries, Minister of Environment over there, because if you could just focus on the geography, which is in the southern part, southern fly of PNG, that back then it was not very interested, but to interesting to the people there, but and to the government. But now with this transboundary issue between PNG and Indonesia and Australia, I think, I hope there will be interest again. But let me just conclude one more, say one more issue, and this is in response to Ibu Karen and others. I think what makes the Arafura and Timor Sea also quite a unique one compared to the other regional cooperation is about the connections of the people. When I say the people, is also some of the indigenous, the local people. We can imagine the Indonesian part of Arafura Timor Sea, the Anti, in East Nusa Tenggara Timur, Papua, the northern part of Australia, Timor-Leste. They bond very, very well, when it comes to talking about the ocean, the culture, the fisheries. So that is one of the strength that we had, in connecting to these people, and you can add Papua New Guinea also on the list. So the people, and I saw one question. So what the challenge, at that time? It was sort of like easy to say that, but I can take the example of Indonesia. At that time, when we start talking about the eastern part of Indonesia, NTT, Maluku, Papua, the attention was not there as compared to the West, and we have to admit that. So challenges was there. It's not easy. I would say maybe similar also to. So that's the attention, right? Yeah, perhatian to the eastern part of Indonesia. I hope now is changing or has been changing with time. 10, 7, 6 years ago, it was very different. When I started talking about NTT, oh yeah, what NTT? What were the issues? Oh, maybe just like, this transboundary, going to Pasir, and then from Rote. But I think now it's becoming more and more strategic, and that's the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Tonny. You have well said and answer a lot of questions, actually. And we move on to Pak Wawan. Maybe Pak Wawan would like to answer some of the questions posed by the audience.
Thank you, Galuh. Thank you, Professor Jainal, for your comment and question. Why then we just what we call use the CTI-CFF that already established? As Pak Tonny was saying, I agree totally with Pak Tonny. This area is quite unique, not only from the culture and also from the connection, but also there is an area, is country not included to the CTI, what we call definition of the scientific area. Like for example, the Australian part is not including to the CTI region. But on the membership of the what we call the government regional partnership, on the CTI CFF mechanism, there are what we call country members, including Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste in this area in Indonesia, and Australia to be a development partner. So here, Australia will be fully a member. Yeah. But also maybe the CTI experience can what we call use as the reference how to develop the partnership. Of course, on developing of the CTI CFF regional secretariat, stakeholder partners also, it is take so long time, because maybe what was Parwan was saying, the legal binding might be take a lot of time. Maybe we can start also from the voluntary basis. So I think on this region, actually, there are so many initiatives, like SSMA in the north. Maybe SSMA is the what we call initiative that already established before CTI-CFF. and on the development and CTI SSMA, then right now integrated into CTICFF. I don't know in the future when, so I mean our homework is what Pak Tonny was saying, how then the ATSEA-2 right now is approaching, try to persuade, I mean, the Papua New Guinea to be involved. Because we don't know yet exactly why the Papua New Guinea, what we call, was absent on the signing of ministerial declaration. Is there any political or what we call reason, or might be because on their experience on involving the CTI might be not so happy, I don't know. All this is our experience. But again, I agree with CTICFF, not what we call using as a reference. Maybe we need to integrate between program, not overlapping. If then we are talking about the marine protected area development, transborder marine species management, for example, so we need to what we call to harmonizing, not to overlapping what was already programmatic by CTICFF among Timor-Leste, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea, and not what we call just what we call do it again on ATSEA program. Yeah, harmonizing is program, integrating programs more important. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Wawan. I have two last speaker. Pak Arwan have raised his hand, and then after Pak Arwan, Mas Handoko will give a closing statement to and maybe address some of the questions that have not been answered, including dari Pak Mat Korebima and others will be addressed by Mas Handoko. So Pak Arwan, please.
Yes, thank you, Galuh. I just want to emphasize what I said earlier, that of course, ministerial decisions is important. Like Pak Tonny said, I agree with you, Pak Tonny, because it laid out the vision. It tells us the end of the road that we want to achieve. It's inspiring. It's visionary. It guides us. It guides us on what we have to do in effective and efficient way. But the way we operationalize those visions, those dreams, sometimes or most of the time, put us in fact in difficult situation because of ourselves, because of the way we create the mechanism, the decision-making mechanism, the way we make structure of the organizations, the way we we work on certain parameters that we think it's good, but in fact it entraps us in situation that we don't have flexibilities anymore. In a situation where we kind of lost our original mission that has been started or initiated by ATSEA. Learning from CTICFF, of course, there are ministerial decisions that we have to execute, yeah. But sometimes in the way we execute those decisions, we just realize that there are things that kind of over govern, like that phenomenon of over governing, like things have to be regulated, things have to have norms and criterias that in fact will hamper the smoothness or the effectiveness of what is supposed to do for the people, for the sea in the Arafura and Timor Sea, and it's all laid out in the SAP nicely or normatively. So what I want to say is, let's not over-govern, let's be functional, let's be beneficial, let the people, the nature, the sea in the area feel the benefits, the advantage, the positive things that this organization can give. because like I said before, being trapped in such procedural decision making, it costs a lot of resources and times and emotions. And as Pak Tony mentioned earlier about PNG, I agree with you, Pak Tony. We need to build capacity. In CTI, we experience all of this, and the only way is to find out what is their problem. Like what is the challenge they face and how we can solve. Because we cannot just expect them to be participate like the way other member countries participate, because they may have there's specific problems that we should come to help. So the secretariat is very important, coordinator is very important. With Pak Eko, with Pak Hendra, in the past we do this with CTI because we feel their problems. We feel that we come to help them, and together with them we try to shape their expectation that really fits into their own needs and the national priority, not something that may look good because the expert thinks this is important, this is comprehensive, but if it is becoming an additional burden or task of the stakeholder, the local government officials, the national focal points, then that will not be something that smoothening the process of ATSEA to be the one that Pak Tony mentioned. Thank you, Galuh.
Thank you very much, Pak Arwan. And last but not least, I would like to call on Mas Handoko to give maybe some closing remarks before the quiz. Please don't go anywhere because we still have the quiz and also some announcement for the quote contest after Mas Handoko. Mas Handoko, there's also questions from Pak Matias Tavares and Pak Jotam Ninef. Already some discussion going on the chat box. I really love reading them. And also questions from Pak Anggoro Aji, Kak Mad Korebima, and Pak Murali. Maybe you can kind of like give an overall answer to their questions. Please, Mas Handoko.
Thank you, Galuh. Yeah, I think first I would like to thank all of the panelists, speakers, and all the participants. And also all the questions well noted. I think hopefully, yeah, we can answer. But then if there is other questions need to be addressed further, you may reach out to us at any time to our contact email. So I think related to questions by Pak Matias or Pak Jotam, I think has been addressed by Liris. I think our team, our communication team, that we are in the step of finalizing the communications plan and stakeholder engagement plan. So we'll be there soon. And then also about the challenges, of course, it's quite easy to to resolve all the challenges. We can do step by step on how we can come up with the better collaborations in the future. We are now in the second years, at least, but then I think honestly this is actually in the first year of the project, and then I learned a lot on how we learn from the previous ATSEA-1, then what kind of the enthusiasm or togetherness, or also other like the similarities among us, why we really would like to have this kind regional governance collaboration. And then also again, there is a comment from Pak Murali, our partner from ISLME. Sure, we will go together, Pak, because yeah, our border, our situation, our government actually similar, Indonesia and Timor-Leste. We will talk further. And then actually related to ATSEA-1, questions by Bro Mat Korebima, I think we can learn from so many documents resulted from the ATSEA-1. One of the several results, for example, completion of the TDA, yeah, I think togetherness, a lot of scientists, and then governments involved in this PDA. And then also strategic action plan, and then also some demonstrations sites, some activities has been done in the site level. In terms of the SPF, of course, related to the discussion with Ibu Karen and then others. Yes, actually, when I start this position, we really identify and then really ask my senior, Pak Tonny Wagey, would like to start with the ATSEA members, would like to talk to everyone and then get a lesson learned from all the members. Unfortunately, actually I was had an FGD with ATSEA member Indonesia back to first week of March. But then when I would like to continue with Timor-Leste ATSEA, then the COVID-19 came, so I couldn't continue. But then we start with contacted the Ibu Karen to identify, and then I contacted our country partner in Australia, Pak Andrew Check, and then also with our contact in hopefully in the future we will identify the current ATSEA member, and then we will encourage other potential member to become ATSEA plus member or SP. So we will ask PT Hatfield and also us with support from regional project management unit will continue to further what we call it discuss on the SPF governance, guideline, communication mechanisms, and so on. As I mentioned in my opening, that we will hosting a stakeholder partnership forum workshop next year, and then we will have still mechanism. I think that's all from my comment, Galuh. So please reach out to us anytime to give a comment or input. We are really welcome with all your positive feedback, constructive input, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mas Han, for the closing. And don't forget, we have that survey or questionnaire. If you have inputs, constructive feedback for the Stakeholder Partnership Forum, please fill in the questionnaire. We so far have 35% of responses from today's participants. If you haven't filled in the questionnaire, please do so, because your voice is very important, and we would like to make sure that your voice is heard in the Stakeholder Partnership Forum towards a better ATSEA for tomorrow. Okay, so yeah, the survey link is already shared again by the committee in the chat box. If you haven't done so, please do it. Before I close the event, as I promised, we have two quizzes. So let us do a little bit of a finger exercise. I will give you 5 seconds to type, but don't send the question, don't send the answer just yet before I say go. So the winner is the one whose answer first appear in the chat box, okay? So be ready. Okay, first question. There's a very interesting present, which is the ATSEA-2 t-shirt, a very exclusive t-shirt from the ATSEA team for all of you, 2 of you who can answer correctly, okay? Number 1, I think we already mentioned ATSEA from the very beginning, but please write or type the abbreviation of ATSEA, what ATSEA stands for. I'll count to 5. Don't send the answer just yet, okay? I'll count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go. No, Mbak Wendy, not yet. Okay, Prof. Zainal. Okay, we have a winner, Prof. Zainal, yeah? Arafura and Timor Seas Action, no. No, Pak. Timor Sea. Nope, not yet, Pak Zainal. I'm sorry, you are not correct yet. Pak Rizky, not yet. Ecosystem approach, not yet. Open your Facebook. Oh my God, Pak Ketut, close. Okay, not ecosystem approach. Ladies and gentlemen, the EA at the back of the ATSEA. Okay, you can try. If you're not correct yet, you have one more opportunity to post the question. Ecosystem approach, not yet, Mas Wildan, not yet. Pak Fikri Shahrudin, we have a winner. Arafura and Timor Seas ecosystem action. Yeah, Pak Fikri Shahrudin. Please contact the committee will contact you, Pak Ricky. Thank you, everybody who participated. We have one more question. Okay, you ready to exercise? Okay, so what's the second question? Okay, Mas Handoko earlier and also Pak Tony mentioned about the membership of Stakeholder Partnership Forum. There are 4 components of Stakeholder Partnership Forum members. Okay, I'll count to 5. Don't send it just yet. Okay, I'll give you 5 seconds to type. What are the 4 components of Stakeholder Partnership Forum members? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go! Mas Wildan, not yet. Close. Not yet. Pak Wijayanto, okay. No, not yet. Windy Rizky, okay. We have a winner. That was very, very fast. Wow. Mas Fitra, okay. Sorry, Mas Fitra. Mbak Windy was faster. Yeah, Mbak Windy was faster than you. So, Windy or Mbak Windy, the committee will will contact you and get a way to send the prizes to you. Congratulations to all winner. And I would like to remind again, we have a quote contest. Please, if you have a quote from the first day until the 4th day of the webinar, post it on your Facebook, tag the ATSEA account or page on Facebook. Have a hashtag, give an interesting hashtag, and we have 2 winners at the end of day 4. The first winner is the best quote, and the second winner is the most liked post. Okay, you have the opportunity to post 2 quotes in the duration of 4 days. Okay, so thank you very much for your active participation. I apologize if there's any mistake during the event hosting. And if you haven't registered for tomorrow's event, please do so. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.